Hello and welcome to the Bestseller Experiment, where we continue to discover what makes a bestseller and inspire you to start, finish and publish your book. I'm Mark Stay.
And I'm Mark Devone. We'd like to say thank you to everyone for joining us today, and especially all of those marvellous people out in the world who are helping this podcast by supporting it as a patron. And if you would like to find out how to do that, we would like to highlight our patron of the week, which is Sally. Sally, thank you so much for joining us and for supporting us. And Sally's going to get tons of extra goodies, lots of deep dives, extended versions of this podcast. Probably hundreds of hours of extra content now, Mark. I can't even be bothered to add it all up, to be honest, because it's too much work now. But it's a lot, and so we're very, very grateful, and we get such great feedback from all the patrons. They really do love the extended. We should just say the extended editions. It's been fun doing those because it kind of feels like we're recording it to a private. Well, we are recording it to a private audience, so we kind of like open up a little bit more, which is hard to think because people talk about, when they listen, and I find this when I listen to podcasts, you kind of really feel like you get to know the person when you listen to a podcast for a long time. It's like somebody down the pub with all the time. And but yeah, if you're interested to find out, if you've been thinking about listening to an extended, then just become a patron. Try it for a month, see what you think. It's lots of fun. But thank you as well to everyone. And Mr. Stay, you've had a busy week. You've been fluting around all these like big conventions in the world, I hear.
Well, yeah, I did the MDC Comic-Con in Kent last weekend, and it was the first sort of big convention of the year, the big Comic-Con of the year, and I got MCM in a couple of days as well. So yeah, it was so much fun. It was just nice because the first one I did of these, it used to be an event called Herne Bay Sci-Fi by the Sea, which took place in a school field. And it was quite a small event. And when I first did it, I had one book. I had Robot Overlords, and that was pretty much it. But now I took a photo, I put in all the books out. It's like, I've actually done quite a few books. I'm looking at them thinking, this is quite a bit. So it was nice to sort of, and the events got bigger as well. It's a massive, massive, big family day out event. And it was really, really good fun. And and I met, because they have sort of people signing photos and things like that, people from Game of Thrones, and Chris Barry from Red Dwarf was there as well. That was really good fun. But I met Paul Warren, who's the actor who played Mr. Sniff, the red cap, the one who sniffs her belly in Unwelcome. Oh, yeah. And I met him, and it was really great to sort of catch up with him finally. And he gave me this poster of all the red caps, and it's like the meanest five-a-side team you've ever seen. They're like all staring at the camera, ready to bite your legs off. And it was great. So yeah, it was really, really good fun. Really good week.
How now? Because looking at I saw a picture of kind of the stand that you had. It's quite a production now, isn't it? You got those roll-up banners at the back. Yeah. Tons of books. Like that must be awesome feeling. Like
it was.
I was thinking back to Herne Bay where you had the one that's like how much can you spread Robot Overlords across one table? And now it's like, where am I going to put all these?
Yeah, I remember that Robot Overlords because I took my iPad along and just played the film on a loop, so people would draw. But you've written a film. So yeah, it was. No, my son came and helped me set up. And he was great.
Did he disappear off again after he was done? Then indeed.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like, cheers, Dad. See you later.
Yeah, bye. But he was great because what he did was he would come at it from all angles and go, no, I can't. That's at the wrong angle. Angle the book there. So it was a good stand.
It was a set designer and everything. God, look at you.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah,
God, blimey. I love it. Well, it's lots of fun, and I think it's probably one of the most wonderful things to be able to do as an author.
I love it.
To be able to, well, firstly, to meet people, maybe podcast listeners, people that have read your books, but also to meet people who might just be wandering by and think, oh, this looks interesting. And then, that must happen a lot, does it?
A lot, yeah.
People wander off with your book at the end.
Yeah, you're making a lot of new readers, and you. And the thing is, I've got a bit of everything because people come up to the table and say, well, we've got time travel, we've got robots, we've got fantasy, we've got witches, and they look around and they're like, oh, this actually, and you get a feeling very early on, do they go for the witches books? Do they go for Back to Reality? Do they go for the End of Magic? Do they go for Robot Overlords? So you suss out who they are and you steer them in the right direction. And that was good fun. And also I've told actual human beings that I'm writing a sequel to The End of Magic, so I better actually finish it now. I had a couple of people go, and they say, good, get on with it. So it was,
well, there's nothing like a dream declaration, isn't there, Mr. Stay? I mean, it's what we live and breathe.
I'm a third of the way through. So I'm getting there. It's good fun.
Wow, brilliant. Fantastic. Well, let's dive into our amazing interview this week. Mark, tell us about this week's guest.
Scarlett Brade was born, educated in London, and as a child, though, she spent her summers in Toronto, Canada, which is where she developed her love affair with reading. She read her first Harry Potter book at the age of 6, and we are going to talk about that afterwards as well. And she completed her own full-length novel by the age of 23, right? Oh, my God. But recently, Zafra published her debut dark psychological thriller, The Hive, which is about a chilling murder live streamed on Instagram, and it's mind-blowing stuff, and she's such a great guest. So we discuss hooks and high concepts, social media and mental health for authors, and how a letter from a reader inspired Scarlett to keep writing.
Brilliant. So tuck in, folks. This is a great interview. Let's listen to Mark chatting with the inspiring Scarlett Brade.
Scarlett Brade, welcome to the bestseller experiment. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Mark?
I'm very good indeed. I'm very excited because your new novel, The Hive, your debut novel, absolute smash. The hook is just genius. It's absolutely brilliant because it opens with a confession. Charlotte has killed her ex-boyfriend's partner, and now she invites you to vote on whether he should live or die on Instagram. That is such a fantastic concept. Tell us more.
That idea just kind of came to me after a really bad breakup in my life. And I thought it was, it was an emotional time. And I thought it'd be a great idea to, write about my emotions and how I feel. And out of that, somehow The Hive just took on a life of its own, and all these characters and their drama and their lives kind of intertwined together. And before I knew it, I had this amazing story about a tortured soul that, had loved and lost and was trying to get over that in the best way possible. And then unimaginable circumstances happen, and it's been a roller coaster. And The Hive takes you on a journey through so many emotions, from good to bad and back again, and it's been a real labor of love for me.
Fantastic. Now it asks really big questions about social media and mental health. I mean, what's your relationship been with social media yourself? Have you sort of been through the ringer with social media yourself, or?
Yeah, of course. With social media, especially when you have a relationship that is quite public and it's online, you get a lot of speculation, you get a lot of comments and people that think they know you on a personal level. And I thought it was important for me to kind of document some of the risks of social media and what we go through. We put so much of our lives online and share so much with people that we don't know, with strangers, and it can have circumstances, and it can, take a toll on us emotionally and physically. And I wanted to tell a story where social media played such a big role in a woman's downfall. And I thought it was so important to highlight the connections between social media and mental health. And I just really wanted to highlight that and just, share an amazing story, but also a story that kind of teaches us to take a second and think about what we're really putting online and how much of ourselves we're sharing.
Absolutely. Has your since writing the book, has your attitude to social media changed? Because not least, you've become an author. You are now, I guess, a public figure where people read the book and they do think they know you. So has that intensified social media for you? Are you coping with it?
It's definitely intensified my relationship with social media, where I want to reach out a lot to my readers, and I want to hear what they think about The Hive, and I want to know their experiences and their thoughts and how they processed all the chapters and everything that happened. So that's been amazing, really connecting with readers and really, getting to the nitty gritty and knowing how The Hive affects them or makes them think. The Hive is a book that really tests our moral compass, and it's nice to know people's take on that. Yeah. So that's been an amazing experience. I've actually found quite a positive out of social media throughout the whole publication and, author experience.
Brilliant. Oh, it's good to know. It's good to know because it can be really tough sometimes, especially, if you get someone like tagging you in a bad review or something like that. It can be the absolute worst. Now, I did see the book is dedicated to Team Strong. Tell me about, because I believe they helped inspire some of the characters in the book as well. Tell me about Team Strong.
Yes, they are my own wonderful set of girlfriends who are just amazing, strong women. They're all quite independent, very headstrong, very, very much they know their own lives. They're really successful. One of them's a fashion designer. One of them owns their own salon. Another one of them is an eyebrow specialist, and another one owns properties. So they're really inspiring women, and they have had such an impact on me and my journey throughout the author experience. And I really wanted to dedicate something to them. It's a story, like I said, it's a labor of love for me, but also for them, because we as a team kind of poured so much of ourselves into the hive, and so many different experiences and dating experiences and things that we go through in this millennial experience where we're all at this age where we're meeting people and we're in the social scene and we're dating and we're in London. And I just wanted something that would showcase exactly that.
And it's very much an East London book as well. It's very much rooted in East London. So tell us more about that.
I'm originally from East London. I live in Essex now, but I'm originally from East London. And it's, East London's a place where you have so much culture and so much diversity, and you meet so many people. And I went to a school, and it's where I had so many different friends from so many different backgrounds and so many different heritages. And it's been amazing kind of sharing that through my writing and having so many different women that were from such different backgrounds that all somehow came together and were friends. And that was a magical experience to me, writing about those strong, really strong women.
Fantastic. Let's go back to where it all started, because as I understand it, you would spend your summers in Canada, and that's where you sort of fell in love with reading. Tell us about that.
My great-grandmother actually looked after my mother as a child, so they were really close, but she lived in Canada along with my aunts and my uncles and my cousins. I have so much family that were there. And as she was getting quite old, we were spending more time there. So when we were very young, from about maybe my first or second birthday, my mum would take us there during the summer holidays, during Easter breaks, just every chance really we got. We spent so much time there in Toronto and Scarborough, camping and hiking, and just a different experience of life. And every time we would go at the airport, my mum, to keep the kids quiet on a plane, it's a long journey. Anybody that's ever taken a flight from London to Canada will know it's at least 9-10 hours. And with very young children, I mean, you can only imagine
God,
the
try
chaos
not to.
for the parents. So my mum would, stop at WH Smith and kind of get us all, magazines and books and anything that would basically shut us up and keep us quiet, and give her peace. And I saw Harry Potter, and this is when Harry Potter, I think it had only been out maybe a year or so, or maybe less than that. So it was fairly new, and I'd heard about it. People were talking about it at school and, at nursery, and all they had all these books. And I was like, oh, mum, I really want this book. I'm 6 years old, and I'm like, mum, that's the book I want. And she looked at it and she saw all the big words, and she said, there is no way you can read that. Why don't you try something that's more, suitable for your age? And I put my foot down, and I the lip quiver, and I shed a tear. And before I had a complete meltdown, she was like, you know what? Have the book. To her complete surprise, by the time we came back from Canada, I had finished the entire thing. And she was completely shocked that a 6-year-old could read it verbatim, knew what was happening, and could explain it back comprehensively to her. She was shocked. So it became a thing where, anytime we would go out or I would want a book, she would just get it for me. She really encouraged my love of books. And to be a great reader is to be a great writer. And that's really where it all began.
That's such a good point. It's such a good... my co-presenter Mr. D, he worries about kids looking at screens too much. So, if you're making that flight today, you'd probably give the kid an iPad, wouldn't you? Or a phone or a games device. Would you give them a book necessarily? So you were in the right place at the right time. So, being a reader is one thing, being a writer is something else. Was there a point where you discovered there was, because we find this a lot with people reading children's book, they go, oh, someone actually writes these. Was there a point where you discovered what an author was, and when did it sort of become a reality? When did you think, actually, I can do this?
Well, like I said, I've always been a great lover of books, always had a book in my hand. And when I went to college, I studied performing arts, and obviously that was a lot of script work and a lot of learning, again, different stories, different ways of acting, different just things and stories that really, really inspired me. And then when I left and I got my first job, I actually worked in Ladbrokes, which is completely different from anything I ever wanted to do. But when you get out of college and it's kind of your first job, you don't really know what to do. So it's just like any and anything will kind of do. And, anybody that's worked in a bookies, apart from taking bets, there's not really much else to do. So one day I just said to myself, you know what, after reading a great book, that I can write a book, I'm gonna try my hand at writing. It was, a quick decision that I made, and it was coming up to my 21st birthday. And I was like, you know what, I just want to try something different. And I started writing, and I self-published a book when I was 23, which was Money Green Memories. I self-published it and I'd finished it. And I felt a real sense of accomplishment knowing that I could just finish a book. I could do that. I could write 80,000 words by myself and really experience that author experience. And I loved it. It was absolutely amazing. It was an amazing journey, an amazing, practice for me in a sense. And after that, then I went on and I did a few writing courses. And then I decided to write The Hive, which has just been amazing.
There's a lot to unpack there. And I love the way you say, I just decided to do this. Because a lot of people, they maybe second guess themselves. They think, oh, can I achieve this? But you're like, no, I'm going to do this. You mentioned turning 21, which, is a big turning point for a lot of young people. We talk about turning 18, 21, turning 30 is a big one as well. What was it? Did you feel like the clock was ticking? Did you feel like you had to get something done by the time you were 20? Which, by the way, I'm 50 is a ridiculously young age to be published, by the way. So congratulations. But, that is amazing. So was it turning 21 that was a big turning point for you?
Yeah, I suppose I always kind of do these big turning points, I guess, in my life. When I was 21, I decided to write Money Green Memories and self-publish it. And then when I was turning 30 last year, The Hive was published. So I think it's, these moments in your lives, these real moments, that make you stop and pivot and kind of think, where is my life going? And what do I really want to do? And what you said about deciding to do something, it's kind of like you decide. I'm a firm believer in anybody can do anything that they actually want to do if they put their mind to it. Yeah. And I know people think, no, I can't, all these obstacles in my way. No, you can. It doesn't matter what it is. You can take those first steps to making it happen. After that, then, the universe and everything else will come into play and things will fall into play, as it did for me in absolutely amazing ways that I couldn't even have imagined, getting a book deal during COVID. These things you couldn't have imagined, but they happened. And it's all because I took the first steps. I decided to take those steps. So I think if I could give any writer any advice, it would be to take those first steps. Just do it.
Publishing Money Green Memories, what were the big lessons that you learned from that? What did you take away from that?
Publishing is a lot harder than I thought.
Right.
Also, that it taught me a lot of discipline. And I think that was the main aim of it. When, the first thing that you ever write is never going to be the thing that, makes you blow up, but you need to know the discipline. And with writing, it's all about consistency. It's all about setting the time aside and really dedicating yourself to that world, that reality, what's happening with those characters. And because I'm quite anal in the sense of I constantly overthink, and there's always wheels turning in my head, and there's always me just thinking. So for me, even when I'm not writing, I'm still thinking about the story.
Yeah.
And I can't switch off until it's done. But with Money Green Memories, it taught me that discipline to get it done. It taught me that sense of achievement, because there is nothing like holding your book in your hand.
Yeah.
With your name on it, and that you put in the time, the effort, every word, every full stop, every comma, it was you. Yeah. And it's amazing editors, of course, and stuff as well, and a whole team behind it. But it was you. You made the story, you made the characters, you made the world. And it's amazing to feel that sense of achievement. There really is nothing like it. And when it came to Money Green Memories, after I'd finished self-publishing it, I thought that was it. I just wanted to have that sense of achievement. I didn't send it to any agents. I didn't send it to any publishers. I just wanted to do it myself.
Right.
And it wasn't until I got a letter from a complete stranger that asked me where is more of my writing? And I have that letter to this day.
Wow.
I still look at it and I still think, oh my God, to just get a letter from somebody that just doesn't know you, that just completely found you, looked for your PO box to send you a letter to say, where is the rest of your work? You must have something. There must be something in you, a raw talent, a raw something that you need to nurture to go in that direction. That was kind of my confirmation that this is exactly where I want to be.
That is brilliant, because we do talk to a lot of authors who talk about that little moment of affirmation where someone taps you on the shoulder and says, either you can do this or more, please. So there was quite a gap, though, between Money Green Memories and The Hive. It's about 6-7 years, maybe. So what was happening in that time? Were you good? Because Money Green Memories, I think, had potential to be a series. Was there any thought of following that up, or did you think, okay, I'm gonna maybe up my game a bit and aim for traditional publishing?
I was actually initially planning a series, which was the initial thoughts of Money Green Memories. And you never know, maybe one day I will go back and revisit that idea. But that was a romantic thriller. And I think, again, when you first self-publish, you're still finding your style. I was very young. I was at 23 and I was still working on my style and my voice and what I wanted to say. And where Money Green Memories was a romantic thriller, I realized through writing that I liked that thriller element, that was me, that was the route I wanted to go down, a path that was a little bit more darker, a little bit more mysterious. It had a little more twists and turns, and that excited me. That made me want to do something more. And obviously with that, life kind of catches up with you again. I'm very young. I wanted to go on holidays and travel and, have relationships and have heartbreaks. And I wanted to go through the motions. And at that age, I really wanted to experience and suck in life as best I could. I wanted to be a sponge and suck it all up. And I was blessed with some amazing females in my life, some really strong women, and we've had a great time. And it came years later when it was just time to document that.
Right.
To really write down, things that happened. And although The Hive isn't directly taken verbatim from our lives, I've definitely jazzed it up and embellished, it to make it a lot more dramatic. It was, it's still at the heart and in its muscle and in its tissue, our lives. And that was just amazing to write for me. It's been an amazing experience.
Well, let's talk about your publishing experience with Zephyr. And so tell us how you got an agent or got a deal. How did that all come about?
Again, this is an amazing story, actually, which is kind of, again, a confirmation that this is where I needed to be at the exact right time. I had a really, really bad breakup, which was really public. It was very much online, and it was with a public figure. And after that, I wanted to write about my feelings again. So I wrote The Hive, which initially wasn't called The Hive. It was called something else. And I had written it. Again, I had finished it, but I also had a full-time job. I was working as a patient consultant for like the Harley Medical Group. So I was very, very, very busy and, living my life, but kind of still writing and doing hobbies on the side. And my older sister is an amazing children's author. And she is an amazing children's author, but she's also on my dad's side. So we weren't very close.
Right.
At all. We didn't really have much. She's far older than me. We just didn't have much of a relationship. And it was just one day she kind of reached out on Instagram to me and she was like, I didn't even know you write. I didn't know you've written. I was posting about, I'd written a book and this. She was like, oh, I didn't even know you write. Send me, your stuff. And I just sent her, the Hive at the time, which wasn't called that, but I sent it to her and she read it through and she was like, this is really good. Wow. I don't understand how this is so good. So she then got me in touch with Nadine, who Nadine then looked through it. And again, Nadine was my second confirmation. I didn't know Nadine. And she was like, wow, no, this is really good.
So for the listeners, this is Nadine Matheson, who's been on the show a couple of times, came to our live show, and she's just amazing. She's, again, very good podcast called The Conversation, which I first heard you on, which is definitely worth checking out. But yes, sorry to interrupt, Scarlett. Just so Nadine gave you that affirmation, yeah?
Yes, Nadine was like, this is really good. She looked over it. She was running a mentorship at the time. And she was like, do the mentorship. My sister was like, yep, do with the mentorship. So I did it with Nadine. She really helped me go over my submission, just look over everything. And she was like, this is going to happen. Nadine was like, there's no way. And, Nadine, and she's an amazing author. She's just amazing. At the time, her first book was coming out and it was, The Jigsaw Man was coming out. And she was like, this is good. Like, you need to do this. You need to send this to agents. And my sister sent it to her agency and we sent it out to another 5 agencies on top of that. So in total, we had 6 literary agencies that we had sent it to, different agents that we had researched, and we thought these would be amazing, agents to send it to. And then to our surprise, 5 out of the 6 came back to ask for full requests, manuscript requests, which was an amazing day for me. I was so shocked. I couldn't believe that so many agents were just, they wanted the Hive. It was amazing. And in the end, we decided to go with, after meeting with them, we decided to go with Kate from Blake Freeman, who has just been amazing. She has been the backbone for the Hive. She has just, she encouraged me. She kept me calm. She's just been amazing the entire time. And we worked on the Hive a bit for about 6 months, 4 to 6 months, I would say. And then we sent it out to editors and we got Zafar.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. It was during COVID as well. So it's locked down and it was, everybody was going through such a tough time. COVID was really one of those isolating moments that made you really reflect. And because I wasn't at work, everything was closed, everybody was on furlough. Yeah. It was an amazing thing to happen. And then to my surprise, which was crazy, after I'd gotten the book deal, and this is what I mean by things happening at the exact right time, I went back to my clinic and they made my entire clinic redundant, which was great. Yeah, it was completely crazy. They made the entire team redundant. They'd closed the clinic and that was that. And it was, if it wasn't for my book deal, if it wasn't for, I would have kind of been lost in life. But again, it happened exactly when it needed to happen.
Well, you say that, Scarlett, but I think you've proven that you make things happen yourself. You get out there, you put the work in. It's Mark Twain said, the harder I work, the luckier I get. So I think you need to take some credit there as well. So it's just a fantastic story. So what's coming next from you, Scarlett? What's coming after the Hive?
So we are currently working on a new book, which is very different. We're calling it a destination thriller with a twist.
Nice.
So we are working on that, which is amazing. I'm literally in the middle of edits. Me and Kelly are going back and forth, and we're really hammering it out, and that will be out next year, which is going to be so exciting. So I'm really excited to, you know, as the year progresses, to start putting out news, and, you know, we can start revealing what we've been working so very hard on. So I'm excited for that book, especially. I can't say too much because I'm told I'm not allowed to say too much, but we're very excited, and it's very different from The Hive, and it's a whole new set of characters and worries and a mystery. So I'm excited.
Oh, we're excited too. This has been fantastic. Scarlett, thank you so much for speaking to us. It's been a real inspiration. And best of luck with The Hive and whatever comes next. Hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you so much, Mark.
What are your writing dreams? Finishing that book, quitting the day job, becoming a best-selling author? Well, over 4 years, we've studied the advice of over 300 best-selling authors who've collectively sold over 500 million books. And we are excited to announce the Bestseller Academy. If you're ready to take your writing to the next level with accountability, craft, and coaching, your bestseller dreams are now only a click away. To find out more and apply, visit bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. That's bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. Oh, what a fantastic interview, and what a lovely, lovely person. I mean, she was speaking my language all the way through that interview. Just so positive,
like
uplifting. Yeah, you did mention that it was going to be something that I really jumped out at. I'm so much to talk about. So let's dive in. Okay, I just have to say this. And it's kind of blowing me away. But we now have a Harry Potter generation of people writing
old,
books.
Man. We are old men.
Properly grown up authors who are reading Harry Potter as kids. And I think it's absolutely brilliant, because here's the thing, right? We've always talked about how everything that we do as writers potentially can inspire other people to write. And now we're going to see this massive wave. I think it's like only just beginning. Massive wave of new authors who had that major like moment with Harry Potter and then lived and breathed Harry Potter throughout their entire like youth, and started to write as teenagers, and now are publishing books and now having massive success with books as well. Isn't it amazing?
It is. It's mind blowing. And that whole, I mean, Harry Potter kicked off that whole middle grade to YA revolution, I think. I mean, but those books were doing well. I mean, this is what makes me feel so old. I was a bookseller when they were coming out, you know, and it was the third book, I think, where it didn't matter how many we reordered, we always sold out. And we were like, this is so weird. Just keep getting them in. So, to think that someone like Scarlett, and if you go to something like Yauk, where you see not just authors, but readers around about her age who are now sort of hitting their 30s. These are the people who were that, you know, young Harry Potter generation who are, you know, knocking it out of the park and have been inspired by those kind of fantastic books and want to do it for themselves now. They want to, you know, create their own universes. And I know we've had authors inspired by Harry Potter and that thing before, but these were people who were already grown-ups, you know, who were already maybe already writing. But, you know, just imagining Scarlett in the airport digging her heels and saying, I want a book, Mum, and then reading the whole thing at 6 years old, and then that just completely opening her mind to all these possibilities. That's amazing.
Well, it made me think of a question mark. We like to run little mini themes on the podcast, and I think we should run a theme for the next month with the question, what book inspired you to write? Oh, now there's a big one. Maybe it's something that we should also answer ourselves, but it's a hard question to answer. Like unless, can you think of one specific book that really jumps out for you?
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I think. I mean, I reread that book, all of those books again and again and again. And I thought, he's doing space and stuff, but he's being funny as well. And I just thought, I didn't know you could do that. And of course, you know, later I discovered Terry Pratchett and other authors like that. But I think it was Hitchhikers was the one that made me think, let's have a go at this, see if I can do this, see if I can do, glom my two things together that I love, which is spaceships and being funny. And, I've tried to do it. The whole idea of just, having that, because I thought, like most 10-year-olds, I thought I was funny. I still do, I think. My kids might disagree. My wife certainly does. But yeah, it's that was it for me. Hitchhikers, I think, was the first one. Yeah.
Do you know, for me, I think it was The Stand by Stephen King.
Wow.
Partly because it was like, I never in a million years thought I could read a book that it was that big. I didn't think it was possible to be so engaged and engrossed in a book that was like, 1,000 odd pages. But that really, I tend to find that whenever I read any fiction book, I just want to write. It's like anything. It's like when you see a great film or great documentary, I want to create a great documentary. It's like, I get so inspired by what people do in their profession, but particularly with that Stephen King novel. When we talk about what book started it, because there's lots of books we read now, I think, that keep us going, which is great.
Yes.
But for me, it was The Stand. So we want to put that question to you, dear listeners, or viewers, if you're watching us on YouTube, if you would like to let us know, we're gonna pick out some of our favorites. Maybe it's something really obscure that you found in an old secondhand bookshop, which no one else has ever read, or maybe it was something that tied in with something that was happening in your life, which made a massive impact for you. So drop us a note on the website, or pop over to our social media. We'll do all the social media at the end, so stick with us. But if you pop along to the website, the contact form, just drop us a note, and we'll pick out our favourite ones. And over the next, say, 4 weeks, maybe, Mark, we'll kind of read them out. I think that'd be fun. Brilliant stuff. Now, Scarlett also talked about, in kind of tying in with all this, she also talked about this importance of life experiences, which kind of tie in with helping her develop as the author that she's become. Absolutely fascinating, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, she said on her 21st birthday, I'm going to write. And that, I guess it was just to prove to herself that she could do it, and to give herself a sense of accomplishment, and to write the book, which is Money Green Memories, which she actually published as Scarlett G. Brade, and it's still up there on Amazon. And it's had great reviews, but I think what she discovered was that she preferred the thriller elements of her stories, but she did it, and it's there, and it's almost, like we did with Back to Reality. Could we do it? Yes, we can. We've done it. That's great. Then the brilliant thing that she did was she said that she wanted to experience life. She said travel, relationships, heartbreaks, and she wanted to be a sponge and suck it all up. And I think that is so important, because I was writing in my 20s, and I think I could string a sentence together. I was writing a lot of comedy and sketches and stuff that made people laugh, again, thinking that I'm funny, but it wasn't really about anything. I'm not sure I had much to say. And I think what's happened is Scarlett's gone out there. She's lived a life, and she's come back with all these experiences. And you just see it with, with the Hive. She's definitely got something, and we'll talk about this in the extended, where high concept ideas come from. She's definitely got something really, really big to say about public profiles and social media, and the way that particularly her generation can be, messed up by that, and how they manage it. And that now I think she's an author with something to say, So I think not to diss the young or anything, but I think the fact is, the older you get, the more, cuts and bruises you get along the way. And I think that means you do have something to say about the world and your experiences in it. It's, I think, going out there and living a life. I mean, my daughter is 23, and she's just finished a draft of a middle grade novel that she's working on, and it's good. She can really write. She can really, really write, and it's really, really good fun. But I have said to her, "What's it about?" And it's coming back to this idea of theme and central dramatic argument. What have you got to say about the world? So I think, I think you need to have had a really rotten boss. You need to have had your heart broken. I think you need to experience grief at some point, even if it's, I'm not, I don't want to wish that on anyone, but I think if, a grandparent, a great grandparent, a pet or whatever, just having touching on those those essential elements of life and the ups and downs of life, that batter and bruise you, but you come out the other side of it with experience that shapes you, and then you want to say something about that, and that's kind of storytelling, isn't it?
I think what's interesting though is there's different kind of like generational things that happen. Like there could be somebody that's born in the streets, and an orphan. By the time they're 20, they're going to have a lifetime of experiences to write about. And then there are also people in their 80s who've just sat in their house their whole life and never traveled outside of their own village. So I think it also depends on. I think it's more about the collection of life experiences you've had wherever you're at in your life. And there are some people that have had like incredibly rich and diverse experiences and challenging experiences or emotional experience. And whenever you experience that in life, I think it's what's interesting. I think it's easier to kind of process when you're an adult and then write about. I think it's harder if you're kind of a young child, for example, and things are happening. Your brain's still kind of like developing and you're trying to make sense of the world. But it's this really interesting combination of all of those things to put together. And I also think the world through the eyes of, say, a 20-year-old can be a really fascinating view. They might not be like the Gandalf of this world. They may be, but they might not be like all that wisdom, but they may still also speak to, say, other teenagers or other 20-year-olds in a voice that feels relevant to them. And so there's so many different angles.
Yeah,
there's so many different ways to do it. So I would just say to people, if you've had any kind of experience which has had kind of some deep emotional impact on you, then you can write about that. And if you don't have to change the world, but you can kind of focus in on that and make it something which can be relevant to a certain group of readers. But I think it's also harder for us, Mark, looking back at our age when we've kind of been through life. Because I think we try, it's like scientists. When scientists have worked all their life trying to prove something, they hate it when other scientists come along who are younger than them and then disprove everything they've just built their whole life journey about. What do you mean? Well, that's BS. Or it's like it was a stepping stone for you to find the big answer to life, which I've been looking for all this time. So it's kind of cool. I think I like to hang out in the sometimes go into schools and do presentations and stuff, and it just continually blows me away, like how 14, 15-year-olds see the world and how out of touch I am with it. I couldn't write about what they're experiencing today.
No, absolutely not.
I keep saying to my daughter, I said, look, I always preempt, whenever I say anything, I say, look, I realized that I was your age once, but it was in like, the 80s, not the 2020s. And I always have to remind myself of that because it's an interesting one, but the value of life experience, I think, and the emotional impact that it has on you and how you write that emotion out, that for me is the elixir of what makes a book something that connects with people. It's an endless debate, isn't it? That's really just
I'm not, like I said, I don't want to be dissing on the youth, but the original storytellers were people who would travel from village to village and they would gather stories, they would gather experiences as they went and then tell them around a campfire kind of thing. And I think you have to think of yourself as this traveler who goes around experiencing stuff. You've got your story sort of radar on, you're collecting interesting characters and events and ideas, and then recounting them and telling it in a truthful voice.
And actually on the social media front, which we're going to talk about in the extended as well, but it does make me wonder, with us consuming so much more information these days on social media, watching TV, we're experiencing things through the lens of a screen, but we're not actually directly experiencing it.
It's not the lived experience.
The adventure of that troubadour going from village to village, collecting stories, they really were experiencing it. And I do wonder how all of that affects our ability to become authentic storytellers rather than retellers of things that we've seen on TV or videos that we've seen on YouTube. But we'll get into that a bit more. That's a whole big topic of social media, but we'll go into that in a bit. One of the other things that I wanted to touch on before we go into the extended is just Scarlett's attitude towards life and writing, we've seen this in so many successful authors. She said, do anything you do anything, you can do anything that you put your mind to, just take the first step.
Yeah.
And I say this again and again, I have a massive bias in this because I'm a coach and this is what I love to kind of focus on. But I really do think that this is a massive area that authors need to work on if they don't have that positive kind of outlook towards that. If they're always beating themselves up, and it's likely that the opposite's going to happen, that things aren't going to happen for you, because we can just see the evidence in all the people that we, they're all so inspiring. I mean, we do get a few people that you sometimes think, wow, how did they with that attitude make it really successful? And that does happen, right? But I'd say the vast majority of people, and I think a very original one of that was Shannon Mayer, just her kind of insane amount of just going for it and not questioning anything and dreaming big. But there's something in that, isn't there, Mark? I mean, you see that as well, right?
You don't get published by accident, right?
Yeah.
No one, knocks on your door and says, I heard your writing and just tell me what it is and we'll publish it. You have to really, especially these days, you have to really want it and go through all the rejection and all of that stuff. So I think where people have gone, well, it's just sort of happened by accident, is a pose. You have to really want it. And we've got people in the academy and in the BXP group on Facebook who are getting rejections and knockbacks, and they are dusting themselves off and picking themselves up again. And we share this. We have every Sunday on the Facebook group, we have a little roundup. What's your week been like? And you can guarantee one week there's always someone who go, I got another rejection. And what's lovely is everyone rallies around and says, keep going. This is it. We've got your back, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I've been there, and I still get rejections, and things still don't work out the way I want them. And it's the life. This is the life you live as a writer. It's constantly being kicked up the backside. So it is a choice that we make to go to endure this kind of stuff over and over. So I mean, Scarlett was I just like you, I loved her attitude. She was just I'm gonna get it done. I'm gonna get this done. So she's inspirational.
I think it's great. I think it's really important for people to, if you're listening to this thinking, I do doubt myself a bit too much, I don't have enough belief in myself. If you're thinking that maybe that's something that you've maybe not worked on, maybe just accepted it as a story that you've told yourself all these years, because you're a good storyteller, remember that. It can work both ways.
Yeah, work against you.
The story. What's the story of your life? How is that? How are you telling that story to yourself and the world, and how are you showing up in the world? And the thing is, there are great highs when writing, and there are also great lows, and you can't have the great highs without the great lows. It's part of the struggle and the beauty of making something like this happen. And so I just want to encourage people out there who are maybe a bit stuck. It's like you've been stuck in this place for a year or several months or 5 or even 10 years or 20 years. Just because that's where you've been doesn't mean that's where you have to go to. There's a fork in the road today, and you can just keep going down the same old path. Just keep doing what you're doing and you keep getting what you're getting. Or you can say, hang on a minute, maybe there's something in this. Maybe if I just took a right at this signpost. And you start to even pretend to believe in yourself, pretend that you're good. Just allow yourself to do that for a day. See what happens. Try to convince yourself. Maybe make yourself a character in your own life story, that you're a brilliant author who's starting on this amazing journey of writing a bestseller. Pretend to be that character in your life and see what happens.
I think, you either... I remember when my daughter first learnt to whistle. She's 6 years old. Have you ever seen a 6-year-old whistle? It is the most confident swagger you will ever see. They just walk around, thinking they've learned something new. And it's just, you feel like, and there's a swagger to that gets knocked out of us in school through exams and life and, being dumped by boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever, all of those trials. And we come out the other end kind of exhausted by it, and we kind of accept our fate. Or you can sort of start whistling again and have a bit of swagger. I think there's something about that sort of confidence, or and I say this as a white bloke, the confidence of a white bloke, because we have everything laid out for us, really. I've always had the attitude of I can do that because no one's ever told me otherwise. Whereas if you're a girl, people go, well, girls don't do that. Girls don't do woodwork. Girls don't play football. Girls don't play rugby. Whereas no one's ever told me that I can't not do anything. I've always done it. So, either have the confidence of a 6-year-old girl whistling or a white bloke who's never been told they can't do anything because no one's ever said I can't. And I blunder in and I'll get stuff wrong and I'll get it. I'll be a disaster at it. But there's something about that means that I just pick myself up and have another go at it. And, it's society and it's a patriarchy and it's wrong and all of that stuff. But it's kind of, it's an attitude that's got me where I am today. But I think everyone can have that attitude.
Well, you can. Yeah, this is the thing. I think that some people are very fortunate in life and that they maybe have very encouraging and supporting parents. I always look at people, I look at the backstory, I look at their family, and it's either one or the other. It's either they've got very encouraging parents who gave them that belief of, yeah, you can do anything, live your dream, go for it. And you're great at that and keep doing that, keep trying hard. And then you can have other parents who are always, very negative or, catching you doing things wrong all the time instead of catching you doing things right, which is one of my mantras as a parent, like catch your kids doing something right today and tell them, and I think that it's so interesting. So some people have had that experience through childhood whereby they've had that confidence nurtured in them. But if you're listening to this and thinking, well, I never had that. I had parents that, that used to kind of like tell me never to do things. And I was always being told no. But this is a learned skill. That's why my library at home is like literally wall to wall of every personal development book I've ever managed to get my hands on. Seriously, I'm so bored, Mark, going into bookshops now because there's nothing new that I haven't had. It's like, oh, come on, guys, I want something new that's not been done before. And and I do, and I read it. Like I've got literally, if I spun my camera around, which I won't because that's not too messy, but all the books I've got around me, I've got books that of every subject to do with everything that I'm fascinated about in the world and about how I can try to improve myself a little bit today, do something different, think differently, get myself out of a rut that maybe I'm stuck in, plan what I want to create in the future, all this stuff. And I'm just constantly feeding this energy. It's relentless and I absolutely love it. And I get times when I dip and I get a bit fed up and I'm like, can I do this? And do I want to do this? And what am I doing? And then you get the age thing kick in and you think, bloody hell, what's going on with life? But you can learn this stuff. So go out and get yourself maybe I should write a list of books for people that might be good starting points for them to start to kind of really build that mentality.
I thought you said you were going to write a book.
Well, I do. Well, this is the thing. I have
Mr. D.
I have lots of half-finished non-fiction books as well, Mark. Tons of them. I know. Well, actually, the work that I'm doing really is kind of weird in a way, but this kind of work that I should be putting into a book, I'm doing in the academy. I mean, that's what.
Yes, it's true.
Right, it's the coaching that I do in the academy, and that's really where I'm putting my efforts at the moment. But yeah, I mean, just remember, folks, it's a learned behavior. And it's just about catching those little habitual thinking moments in that might knock you down. Just like flip them around and think about something the opposite, like what could happen rather than what could go wrong. What could go right, for God's sake? Yeah. What could go right? What could bloody go right with your book, folks? What could go right with it? Like clues in the word. Anyway, before I go off on a rant, we've got a ton more stuff to get through. We're going to, for anyone interested in continuing this journey with us today on the extended, we are going to talk about social media and being an author online and the challenges of it. Do you have to do it? Do you need to do it? Do you want to do it? Is it essential? I know this is a big topic for a lot of people, so join us in the extended. We're going to talk and deep dive into that. We're also going to talk about life pivot moments. Scarlett talked about this letter that she had from her reader, which was a huge milestone. So we're going to deep dive into that a bit. What have been major life pivot moments for you? What pivots would you love to maybe see in your future life as an author? Like what could there be that you could create? We're going to also explore the importance of great friendship groups, people to support you, and also great mentors as well. Mark's also done a ton of work around hooks and high concepts, which we're going to dive into.
Gonna be fun.
And something we called story perpetual motion, this idea of the wheels always turning in your mind. So folks, if you'd like to join us for the extended, you simply go along to bestsellerexperiment.com/support and sign up, and you'll get access to all of these extra goodies that we have for you. So welcome, folks, to the extended edition of this podcast. I'm going to dive right in and talk about social media, which was a massive theme for Scarlett. I mean, it was the whole theme of her Hive book, wasn't it? But it did bring up this question about the challenges of social media, and specifically the challenges that people have as authors, and how I have a sense, Mark, that some people maybe don't ever finish their book because they know that when they finish it, they're going to have to start creating a Facebook page or an Instagram account, and they really don't want to do that. And I bet you there's a ton of unfinished stories out there because of that one thing. And I'm sure you've seen that a fair bit, haven't you?
Oh, I have. There are people that I used to work with who were right. I'd find out that there was someone, I think it was like my leaving do at Orion, and there's someone I'd worked with for like 10 years, and they just let slip that they were a writer. I was like, oh, I never knew that. And they were like, yeah, but and they didn't want to sort of do it. One, I think because they worked in publishing and seen what authors go through.
Yeah, it's probably the worst place. Like, if you like McDonald's, don't work in McDonald's, right? Bad analogy, but you know what I mean. You know, but eat another Big Mac again.
They were quite a shy and retiring person kind of thing, not like me, big show off on a podcast or whatever. So, and I kind of understood that, but also you don't have to be yourself, if you see what I mean. You can, first of all, two things to say. One, we've got a deep dive that's just come out with Kelly Weeks where we talk about social media and what sort of the way to behave on social media and stuff like that. So do check that out. That's just come out a couple of days ago. But also, you don't necessarily have to put yourself out there. I think the person you are on social media as an author is the best version of yourself. It's the best foot forward sort of version of yourself that you put out there. But it doesn't even have to be you. Like a few episodes ago, 10 or so episodes, we had the author Jane Davis on here. I don't know if you remember that. She writes Regency romance. Now, Jane Davis isn't her real name. And if you look at the website, there's a lovely banner on there because she writes this Regency romance. It's a kind of a Jane Austen sort of character on a chaise longue reading a book. That's not Jane. That's a picture she's used as a banner for her website. And her author photo is brilliant because it's her reading a book with her face hidden behind the book. So you can't even. But what she's done instead, in order to sort of create a profile, is she's made herself a resource. So if you go to Jane's website, she writes about Regency England and Regency money and visiting country houses. She's made herself a resource. If you want to know about Regency England, either as a reader or a writer, you go to Jane's website. So you don't have to be a big super duper personality. You can just make yourself super useful in your genre. And I think whatever, however much of yourself you want to put out there, that's an essential thing to do anyway. I think
a big tip as well that I've learned with social media over the years, and I've got to say, I have a love-hate relationship with social media, and we hear that. I think pretty much everyone does now. But in terms of when you step out as an author and you think about social media, I think it's really important to separate your personal social media pages and your professional social media pages, I think of them. So when I was, as an artist, as a musician, I found what really worked well is you create yourself, Facebook, I guess it might still be relevant. Instagram, definitely, maybe Twitter, whatever the new version, Blue Sky, I think it's called. Yeah. If you can get in on that, because it's very exclusive apparently, which is a great marketing hook, just to get people interested, scarcity and all the rest of it. But the point is that if you've got, say, 500 friends on social media, I think one of the challenges for authors is they think, oh, I don't want to go and start posting about my book and book all the time. Because I think generally people want to hear about that. But what I did very early on is I said to my personal page, I said, hey guys, if anyone's interested, I'm doing this. I'm writing this album. I'm starting my life as a musician. If you're interested in finding out, I've set up this Facebook, and I've kind of like transferred across, 20% of people who are now in both groups. And then if there's anything major that happens, then yeah, put it on your personal page, but like point them towards, the other group to help build it up. And I find that when you've then got that kind of professional social media page, then go for it. People are, it's like subscribing to a newsletter. If someone's subscribed to it, then don't feel bad about sending them an email every now and again.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like,
I can't tell you the number of newsletters I get that say, "Oh, sorry to
to disturb you."
No, I want to know this. I subscribed for a reason. Tell me more. And
that's what the unsubscribe button's for. If you get to a point where you're like, "Well, it's not relevant anymore. I'm getting too many of them." Unsubscribe. I must say, by the way, folks, I heard someone the other day, I was chatting with someone about, they're always sending me all this stuff. And I said, did you subscribe? Yeah, but they're sending me all this stuff. And then she said, so I've just hit spam. And I'm like, oh no. What people don't realize. Okay, so I want to just educate anyone that does that firstly. And secondly, anyone that runs a newsletter, when someone hits spam on a newsletter that they subscribe to, the spam gets reported to whoever your newsletter provider is. And if you get enough of those, you can actually get banned. You can have your whole newsletter be, your whole, that company saying, right, you can no longer use our services because you've had too many complaints. So please do not hit spam. If you have subscribed to it, if they're sending you too much, hit the unsubscribe button. It's legally there. It has to be a link at the bottom of every email.
Yeah.
Don't hit spam, because it's actually all the work that people have done to build up these newsletters. And I know, because it isn't spam. You've asked to receive the newsletter.
Yeah.
So anyway, just a little technicality, because a lot of people don't. Obviously, people who don't run newsletters don't realize that. And you get we get an email that says complaint. You get a complaint through as the owner of the list from someone who subscribed to your newsletter, and you think, oh, come on. So anyway, but it's because there's not enough education. So please don't do it. But also, please educate your friends and family about this, because I think loads of people do it, and it's a big flaw in the spam button that Gmail and other email providers have. It's just one of my little bugbears. But yeah, so you've seen that as well, Mark, have you?
Yeah, I had one this week. It was really annoying. Because I've just launched a comic book, and I sent it out and said, oh, there's 50 only, get blah, blah, blah. And it's great. Half of them are gone already really quickly, but I just had one person unsubscribe, and then, it's on MailChimp. It's like user abuse or something. It's like, what did I do? I don't know. It's not spammy at all.
The thing is, you'll always get that, and that's why they give you
everyone.
You can't please everyone, and some people sometimes just a bit fed up with email, having a bad day, or forgot they even subscribed to it. That's why I always like to put "Dear Mark" in there, because like when I see it's my name, I'm thinking, how did they get my name? And think maybe I subscribed to it. Anyway, it's funny. Let's talk about life pivot moments, Mark, as well, because Scarlett talked about the letter from a reader that was a huge milestone in her life. I think that this is a really important point, that we need these moments in our life, because there'll be some authors listening to us today who may be working away at their craft for years and be thinking about giving up. They might be standing on the ledge of authordom and thinking, no, I'm done with it. I don't want to write anymore. But those moments, they're so powerful, and the people that deliver those moments to you, just a random everyday reader who decides to write your letter, does not know the impact that letter has to that individual. So we need to remember that as readers. We need to write to our favorite authors and thank them for the work that they've done, the great story that they've done. But can you think of a life pivot moment, Mark, in your life when it came to writing, something which somebody said to you or something you received?
Well, the big one was our mutual friend Jeremy Mason, because I'd written a play, my first play, and he came along to see it. And he was the only person I vaguely knew in the world of showbiz. He was a cable basher on a TV show called TFI Friday, and he said to me, "Look, there's too many actors, but not enough writers. You can write. Keep writing." And that was that was 23 years ago. It was just before Emily was born. And that I kind of thought, yeah, okay, I can. Because I used to write sketches with Jeremy. We'd meet after school and write these silly Monty Python style sketches.
I can only imagine.
Oh boy,
if anyone knows Jeremy.
I mean, it was totally. I remember we performed some for our drama teacher, and the look on her face was just like a combination of horror, disgust, But yeah, we had such a good time together. But it had always been just, one of those things. I think am I good at it? I don't know, kind of, and to have someone tell you that, but also doing an event for the first time, having another author tell you that they like it, and then having a complete stranger say to you, "Oh yeah, that was really good. I really like that." That never ever gets old. From the very basic, like someone at the weekend at the Comic-Con will say, "Oh, this was really great. I really enjoyed that. Thanks. Brilliant." To someone actually writing, and when I say writing, an email is brilliant, and I get those, and that's wonderful. But I've had letters and postcards, just out of the blue, where people have said, "This really moved me," or "I really thought it was amazing," or So those are. That's where I gather the family round to kind of look at this, look at this.
Yeah,
this is
one of those moments. And what I've learned is those letters, whether they're email or, handwritten letters are almost priceless because they're so rare.
Yeah, no question.
And there's something really human about them as well, which is really beautiful. But I do think it's very important for any aspiring writer, if you're listening to this, or any if you're in Mark's situation where you've had letters about books that you've written, and to buy yourself a beautiful wooden box. Okay, it's something really ornate, carved. Go to some. There's probably a ton on Amazon. I'm not trying to really help. Jeff doesn't need any more money, but anyway, go to your local craft fair. Find a beautiful box. And I always remember a teacher said to me, she said, when I'm having a bad day, I pull out my box and I've got all the letters from my previous students. Right. You won't probably remember me, Mrs. Smith, but you taught me in grade 2 and you said something to me which changed my life. And look what's happened. I've become this, right? She keeps those letters in this box. And she said she doesn't need meds or antidepressants. She just opens the box and she just starts reading, and it fills her. And I must admit, I do have a box, but I also have a folder. I created a folder about 10 years ago on my computer called Life's Treasures or something like that. I named it something like that. And every time I get an email or even just something written, maybe it was a review or something like that, which really touches me, or something somebody says, I save it in there, and I keep this little. It's not quite as nice as having it kind of, in a physical sense, like an Aladdin's kind of treasure. But I encourage everyone, if you have never received any and you think, blimey, if only, my dream is to get, then buy the box anyway and have it on your desk where you write. And write yourself a little note and put that inside the box to say, to be filled. Okay. And remember that that's why you're doing what you're doing. It's not ultimately for your own personal success, for your own ego, for your bank balance. Ultimately, the number one reason you do that is to change people's lives. And those letters are mini little drips of the ocean that shows that somebody has been touched by the work that you've done. And so get yourself your own treasure chest.
It's funny. I've got all my letters sort of stuffed in with my old gig programs there. You go to a concert and you spend 20 quid on a bloody brochure. I do have a nice box down there, actually. I must put them there. But I tell you what I did this weekend as well, on the Saturday, was I drove down to Brighton because Robert Rankin, the author, his wife Rachel is an artist and ceramicist, and they were having an art open day. It's a thing they do in Brighton where you go into someone's house and you can look at their art and buy art and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that's a perfect excuse to go and see Robert, because I haven't seen him for years. And what Robert did, this is another little moment, was when I was events manager at Warstones in Epsom, I invited him to the store for an event, and we got him, and I was amazed. And before the event, I'm sure I've told the story before. Before the event, I sort of cornered him and said, "Hello, Robert, I love your books, and I'm a writer, and I'm writing, and I haven't finished anything yet, blah, 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 blah." But Robert started in the event, and he was talking to the audience there, and he said, and as a writer, like my friend Mark over there, he's a writer as well. I was like, oh, he called me a writer. I better do some actual writing.
What a moment.
Well, exactly. But I made a point of, I thought I'll go down because I haven't seen Robert in years. And I went down to see him. And before I left, I said to him, you probably don't remember this. And I told him about that moment. I said, you have no idea what that meant to me, to have someone sort of say you're a writer. And I just wanted you to know that what you said had a profound effect. And, here I am today. And I could see he was kind of a bit speechless, actually, bless him. He's such a lovely man, such a lovely man. And so I just, it's not, I just thought it was the right time to say it, sort of thing.
That will mean the world to him. It really, and they'll take that to his grave mark. Seriously, those are the moments that you remember, and you always sit back, and they're important to remind yourself. And it's a circle of life as well, because what he's done for you, you're now doing for other people. Like you obviously meet. I mean, look at us on the podcast. Encouraging and hopefully inspiring people. To be their best selves when it comes to life and writing. And I think it's all part of that beautiful kind of big soup part of the journey and the story that we're all characters in many ways. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. Love that. Let's talk a little bit about the importance of friendship groups, because Scarlett Brade had quite the eclectic mix of successful Team strong. Talk about picking a bold name, like the Ronseal approach, say it how it is. And I just think there's no coincidence that when you surround yourself by great people, always try and surround yourself by people who are better than you as well, like that you can aspire to be. And in the reverse of that, if you look at, say, certain groups you're a part of that might be a little bit toxic, is it time to let go of that group? Is it time to move on and find people who see the world like you see it, or are inspired by the same things you're inspired, and will build you up, and you can build them up, rather than knocking each other down or whinging and moaning about how awful the world's become, like constantly 24/7, which I know it's easy to do, but like the news does.
Especially on social media as well.
Well, it is. But so even more important to have this friendship group, like to go out and seek those people if you don't have it. But I think it's, I think about the Academy really in this regard, because people create friendship groups within, like, we have a ready-made group of people that come in, are very like-minded. They're authors, are all bonding through the journey of writing stories, but you seek out those people that you really click with. And we've seen so many friendship groups build and people supporting each other. And it's no surprise that the Academy is such a great environment to be a part of. And the same on the Facebook kind of BXP group as well. It's just such a positive spirit, and everyone's so friendly and loving and warm and kind and passionate. And so I think it's no surprise that Scarlett has succeeded in what she's done, because this friendship group of hers really helped support her, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a thing that I was reading a John Higgs book about how culture has changed and how generations have changed. And that sort of millennial generation and Gen Z as well, they've mastered the idea of the friendship group. They have, in a way that perhaps our generation did, because we had friends at school and then we go off and do our own thing. But I think one of the things social media might do is keep those groups together in a way that it didn't when we were kids. And I think it's a really important factor in their lives, and I think it's brilliant that she's got this, but also she's got to bring on to maybe what we're going to talk about next, which is mentors as well, because you have a friendship group, but then you have someone like Nadine Matheson or Scarlett's older sister telling her, okay, you're good, you're doing this right. And then you get that kind of laser focus where someone says to you, okay, this is going to happen, keep going.
Yeah, I think a mentor in any pursuit in life, to find someone that's been there. I mean, that for me is the idea of like the archetypal kind of mentor, is somebody who's walked that path that you're currently walking or about to walk, and can kind of give you a bit of a bird's eye view. They're they're out in the forest, they're flying around in a helicopter, and they already know the pathway through the forest. And I think I always encourage people to find a mentor. I think it's super important. I mean, in some ways, a coach. I often say to people when they start coaching with me, I say, one of my roles is to be a mentor for you and to guide and support you through the journey that you're on. And but a mentor is also a cheerleader as well. It's somebody that believes and sees potential in you. And to have someone like that, a bit like Robert Rankin, was kind of like a pseudo mentor for you, Mark, wasn't he? I mean, even though it was a thing that he said to you, but if you don't have a mentor, then come join the academy, because that's the role that Mark and I play, I think, for many people in the academy, right? From our various kind of specialties, if you like. Yeah. And that's why we really have, set up that opportunity to kind of work directly with us, because it helps, it helps to inspire. And we become also kind of personally invested in your journey when we get to know about you and your book. I think that's the difference, isn't it, Mark? We get to really understand what you're going through. Yeah. But if, it's hard to find mentors. But there's also no need to not write to your favorite author and just ask them for some advice. Tell them what you're struggling with, or say, looking back in your career, was there ever a point where you experienced this? What would you recommend me do? Even if it's just a letter that you exchange or an email that you exchange, it can make all the difference.
I had someone message me on Twitter the other day saying they were a screenwriter in Australia, and it's just like, I don't know what I should do. What should I do? And we just had this conversation, and I think he came away sort of, with an idea of what he should do next. And
Yeah, a lot of people don't do that because they think, I can't reach out to that person, they'll never read, or maybe they don't even look at their emails or social media. But we do. I mean, everyone does. And I think people like to be asked about mentorship because it's also a pivot moment for them in their life, like going from student to mentor. You suddenly kind of go, whoa, hang on a minute, when did this happen? And it helps the individual realize that they've kind of graduated to this new level where they can actually start to help people who are starting that pathway through the forest. And so definitely think about that. And if you don't know where to start, then start with the academy. I mean, that's what it's there for. Now, Mark, hooks and high concepts.
Yeah, this was great because the Hive is such a great high concept idea, and Scarlett talked about starting with a great hook. So in which case the Hive is, you got this betrayed woman who's captured her ex-boyfriend, and she asks social media if he should live or die. Brilliant. You just totally want to know more. But what was interesting, of course, the interview, it was clearly inspired by a bad breakup in Scarlett's own life. And, I didn't want to know the nitty gritty of what actually happened. But I think the important lesson to learn for us is that sometimes a great hook comes from taking something that's real and then thinking about the unthinkable. So in Unwelcome, that opening scene was always there, which was, I had fears about people breaking into our home. So what if that actually happened? How would we react to that? What would I really do about that? And also think about it thematically as well, because Scarlett made the point, she said the book tests the reader's moral compass. That is an essential element, I think, for a really great commercial hook. It has a central dramatic argument that asks a difficult question about how to judge someone for their sins. It's a great high concept idea. So she said it just came to me. And a lot of people say that, but I think, there's a certain kind of mindset where you start thinking about these ideas, and you can sort of train yourself to, because if you try and force it, if you sit down now with a pen and go, I'm going to come up with a high concept idea, you're doomed to failure. But I think if you give yourself a kind of mindset that asks the right questions, then you start to generate these ideas. Okay. So first of all, let's define terms. A high concept idea is one with a clear, easy pitchable premise driven by a straightforward plot. Okay. I'll give you some examples in a minute, but sometimes it's just expressed as an X meets Y idea. So Unwelcome, we pitched as Gremlins meets Straw Dogs. A monster movie meets a home invasion movie, and people loved that. And that went all the way through the whole process, from the original pitch to selling it and getting, producers on board, all the way through to reviews. It just all the way through.
Yeah, like usually the opening paragraph of every review I read. Yeah,
exactly. And I think the best high concept ideas ask great questions that force the reader to take a stance. So in Unwelcome, we wanted to see how much we could provoke a pacifist couple before they resorted to violence. And that came out of John and I confessing, going to very, very dark places and thinking, when would we ever resort to violence? Maybe to defend our children. Okay, let's go there. Let's do that. But yeah, let's think of some great high concept things. So in fiction, so you got The Power by Naomi Alderman. That is, what if women developed superpower to electrocute men? Okay. The Fault in Our Stars. What if two kids in a cancer support group fall in love? The Hunger Games. What if children were forced to fight for survival on a kind of reality show? And Jurassic Park. What if we could bring back dinosaurs? They're all great what if questions, which is the beginning of it. I think people think, oh, that's it, I've done it, I've come up with a great original idea. But no, I think if you come up with the idea, that's great, but that's not enough. So let's think of one ourselves. Let's think of an example. So what if I found one way to do it is to think of something that already exists and give it a twist. Okay, so what if Snow White was a robot? Okay, all right, that's a funny idea. What if Snow White? But is that it? No. The question to ask yourself is, and then what? And this is a key question. You come up with the what if, but then you've got to test it. And then what? And then what? Okay, so if Snow White was a robot, and then what? Okay, so what if she'd been genetically engineered to be the fairest of them all? Okay, so that means we can start asking questions about beauty and genetic engineering and the ethics of all that. And suddenly it's Snow White meets Pinocchio. All right, let's dig deeper. Let's make it emotional. Let's ask difficult questions and invite the reader to take a stance. And the other thing is, make it about the protagonist, because an idea is just an idea, but you've got to channel that idea through a person. They are the one who does the antithetical thing. They challenge the premise. So if Snow White has been engineered to be a beautiful robot and she's exiled to go and live with 7 microbots. Okay, so what does she discover from her robot brethren, and how does that inspire her to throw off her beautiful shell and overthrow her creators? And suddenly we've got a story, So I think what if is one element, and then what is another, and then channel it through a theme and a character who challenges that theme. And that's how you do it. I make it sound so easy, but it's not. It really isn't.
No, it's not. I mean, and it's also something which is a lifelong pursuit of excellence, of continually sharpening and refining the skill that makes that work. And the only way to do it is by continually practicing it and building it. But I love that. I think that's such a brilliant. It's a way of getting really deep into the very core of what your story is about. And
yes,
and just also shows the power of where you can take a story just by looking at it on a very, very, very concept level. So yeah, I think maybe some people will be able to now take that, whereas previously they may have just kind of thought of a great idea and then start writing a book.
But, well, that's sometimes you have things like Snakes on a Plane. Okay, classic example. You hear the title Snakes on a Plane. Oh, what a great high concept. What a brilliant high concept. You see the trailer. Samuel Jackson is rather miffed about snakes on a plane. This is going to be amazing. And then the film was a disappointment because it didn't get beyond. They had the funny idea, but they didn't go, and then what? They didn't really interrogate it to a point where it was engaging and actually gave the viewer anything to sort of latch onto. It was just an idea that
ended with snakes on a plane.
Ended with snakes on a plane, and didn't really survive that kind of endurance test that you need to put it through to make it into a story.
Absolutely. Brilliant stuff. Now, to finish the extended, Mark, and it isn't extended, isn't it?
Yes,
oh my gosh, loads of stuff. We're going to talk about what we termed story perpetual motion, and it's a concept. We're trying to come up with a phrase for it, weren't we? But it's this concept that Scarlett Brade talked about, that her wheels are always turning in her imagination. She said, when I'm not writing, I'm thinking about my story. We had, Sarah Pinborough,
yes,
wrote Behind Her Eyes, had an incredible career. And she always used to say, I might not write every day, but I'm thinking every day about my book. And I think this is the analogy that I wanted to use was this idea that if you've ever learned to speak a foreign language, I remember learning French at school, they always say that there comes a point where you become so engrossed in learning that language that you start dreaming in that language. So I started dreaming in French, and they say, you've made it when you start dreaming in the foreign language. And I think for me, the same applies for an author who's really engrossed in their book, in that that you're fully 100% engaged when you're always thinking about the book. You're going out into the world and you're seeing potential characters or ideas, or you just, whenever you got a moment, you might be sitting on the toilet or sitting on a bus, doesn't matter. You will think, you might be thinking through, how do I fix that plot point that's not quite right? And so are you always on? Do you find that your brain is just like you watch a movie and you're like, oh, that'd be a good idea for this, and connecting it to something that you're working on?
Yeah.
See, I think only comes from doing the work pretty much daily. I think if you don't do it daily, it kind of starts to fade, and then eventually it switches off, and then you kind of have to re-engage with it.
Yeah, it is. It's story perpetual motion, and it's kind of why I'm afraid to stop writing, because I think
right.
I think you do see this a lot. People go, and I understand why people need to take a holiday or take a break. But that's kind of why we have the 200 word a day challenge, because it's 15, 20 minutes of your life. It's not like all encompassing.
Not
takes
like
up your whole day.
Not like my friend who trained to become a concert pianist and once told me, Mark, he said, I practice 8 hours a day. I said, oh, that's amazing. He says, no, it's not. He says, I have to practice 8 hours a day. Otherwise I'll actually get worse. And I thought, that's not good. Great thing about storytelling is you don't have to work all day to keep that momentum going, but it's keeping that. It also keeps the axe sharp as well, doesn't it? Sharpens the saw, and I think that's the crucial. So we've called it story perpetual motion. It's this idea you either have it or you don't have it, and if you have it, it's because you're fully invested and engrossed in your writing, and if you don't have it, it's something
you can nurture it.
Nurture towards,
absolutely,
and also it depends on the story. I think if you're so excited about a story, you literally, I think it's okay to become a bit obsessed with it. And
I'm totally in the obsessed phase at the moment. I'm writing The End of Dragons, and I'm writing over 2,000 words a day. I mean, a lot of it's notes. I came down this morning. I had reached a point where I had no idea what was actually going to happen next. I had a vague idea of a scene, but I wrote for 2 hours, and by the end of it, I had a brilliant. Listen to me. I had a scene that I was really, really happy with. Yeah. And I was like, that didn't exist 2 hours ago, and now it's there, and I'm really happy with it. And similarly, tomorrow, I've only got a vague idea what's going to happen, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to make it happen again. There were times over the winter where I was working on stuff, and I'd finished the final draft rather. Of the next Woodville book, and you've got edits and copy edits to come and blah blah blah, where I was sort of doing 3 or 4 projects at once and only doing a little bit of each one, and that was to keep my hand in, because I felt if I stopped and had a break, getting that momentum going again would have been an absolute nightmare. So writing a short story, writing notes for a new idea, even writing a pitch for something. It's exercising those muscles. It's keeping that perpetual motion going, and it's important.
What's that thing that people always had on their desks in their offices?
Newton's cradle.
Cradle.
Tick, tick, tick,
Yeah,
tick, tick.
that's what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah.
Newton's cradle. It's like it's just about giving it a little whack and keeping it going, and then it just ticks along in your brain all day long. Maybe that's the analogy.
Yeah, it's not. You're not doing NaNoWriMo every day. You're not.
No,
it doesn't. I'm currently in that phase. That's that first draft phase, but that's gonna. Once I finish that first draft, that's gonna calm down a bit, and then that's where you can take a break and lose momentum.
That's where you're kind of the engine's idling.
Yeah.
And then you start revving when you. Yeah. So I think it's so. Anyway, just we really wanted to kind of just name it, give it some kind of term, because something we've heard a lot on the podcast, but we've never actually given it a definition. So if you want to go out into the world and talk about that definition and gives it some, maybe it's the Newton cradles definition, or the story perpetual motion. It's like something around this constant involvement in your story and engagement with it. And that, I think, is a sign of a great author, that they're always engaged. I think that's something to strive for if you don't have it, and to continue if you do.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, folks, for joining us with the Extended. And if you've joined us with the Extended, you're in some way supporting this podcast, whether you're a member of the Academy or whether you're a patron. So we very much thank your support, and please do tell your friends. So, Mark, loads of stuff on social media this week.
Well, we were talking about in the Extended about letting people know that they've had a profound effect on your writing or your career or what have you. By weird coincidence, we got a whole bunch of those today. So strap yourself in. First one's from the Academy, and the wonderful Sandra Hunter, who I adore, and she's just a wonderful human being. She said, she says, I'm so jazzed to have received an email today from a student who had contacted me for an interview when she'd read Guardian Forest, that's Sandra's first book, I think, as a school lit project 2 years ago. She's in grade 10 now and wrote to thank me for the interview all that time ago. And she says, I finally started writing a book and just wanted to tell you what a wonderful motivator you've been. You are what changed my mindset from I want to write a book to I want to build this new and wonderful world filled with characters I've created. Every time I thought of quitting, I reminded myself of the amazing woman who told 8th grade me all about herself in a Zoom meeting and went above and beyond to supply me with resources to help me along when she had no obligation to. Sorry for the random message, just wanted to properly thank you. And Sandra says, I'm still kind of teary-eyed and so very happy that a young person was even the least inspired to pursue creative writing further to chat on our chat on Zoom. It truly does go to show that as writers, we never realize how much our words may affect a reader in a positive way. Wow.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I know if there was ever a example of everything we've just talked about, that is it. Isn't that amazing? And then it's brilliant, isn't it? Sandra is an absolute shining light. She's just a wonderful human being. She's so kind and generous with her time. And deserves all of that and more, because she's an incredible author as well. So thank you for 100%. Sharing that with us, Sandra, as well. I think it's super important to celebrate those moments when they happen, and just totally on theme. Absolutely brilliant.
Totally. And it's my turn to embarrass you now, Mr. D. So this is an email that says, hi, Mr. D, how are you? It's been a while since we spoke. And she says, I just want to say a quick thank you. Ages ago, when I was in the Bestseller Academy, you encouraged us writers to email an author we liked to tell them that we appreciated their book. I just finished Jane Friedman's book, The Business of Being a Writer, and at your prompt, wrote to tell her I thought it was excellent. And she replied to say she clicked my website link in my email signature and was impressed with my non-fiction coaching and editing business. From that first email, we stayed in contact over the years, and she's now invited me to teach a non-fiction writing class hosted by her, which is this week, in fact. And it's a class about should your book be a memoir or self-help? And she was in the academy to learn write fiction, but a day job non-fiction is her area of expertise. And she goes on to say, thank you for the nudge to connect with the people we admire. Jane is a juggernaut in the publishing industry. I'm so honoured and a little giddy to be teaching with her. I hope this note encourages you to revel in your enormous wisdom, to brag to everyone about how smart you are. But seriously, thank you. And that's from Liz Green.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. Isn't that brilliant? It's
brilliant. Brilliant. Oh, and folks, if you're looking for a non-fiction editor, Liz is at Green Goose Writing. I'll put a link in the show notes. She is fantastic.
Yeah, Liz is absolutely brilliant. And it is one of those things, isn't it? You mention it. I taught that in the academy because I've done that a number of times in my life and seen what has happened. Like the most, just it's weird, but you're not writing to somebody to get anything from it other than thank them. But oftentimes stuff just happens. So I mean, and it's brilliant. I love the fact that Liz has shared that story, and every success to you, Liz, where's that going to take your career now, and working with one of your heroes in that realm? Absolutely brilliant. Fantastic. Brilliant.
And I got another great one, Kate Baker, who did Maid of Honor, which Maid of Steel, not Maid of Honor, it's a Jennifer Lopez film, Maid of Steel. She said she got a lovely text from her sister-in-law today. And the text goes, funny story. This just happened. I'm sitting on a plane, window seat, waiting to depart Nashville to fly to Dallas. I have your book on my lap. Cabin crew lady pauses at my row, sees your book and asks, is it good? I said, brilliant. She said, it's the third time she's seen this book on her flights recently. She said, you are truly famous, Kate. Could have been more proud. It's helped take my mind off my anxiety about being on a plane. So this is just amazing. And Kate put this on social media, and her sister-in-law message saying she's going to gift her copy to the same cabin crew on the return flight next week.
I love it.
So it's just
perfect.
Isn't that brilliant?
That happen? I think it's amazing.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
We were talking in the extended about snakes on a plane, but we've got a whole new theme of books on a plane.
Books on a plane, yeah.
Books on a plane.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations, Kate. That is, that, again, we talk about these milestone moments. I didn't have that one actually, like books on a plane, but there's moments where, for example, a friend of yours sees someone on the underground reading your book and then just has to text you or takes a secret photo to send it to you. Moments like that, just to remind you what impact your books have out in the world, folks. Absolutely brilliant.
On the 200 words a day front, SC Gowland says, finally banked my 200 words a day total for Delusions and Dragons, which is his new book. And he's been writing this book using the 200 word a day challenge. So total for Delusions and Dragons, 88,303 words. Which takes his career total words written 586,367.
Wow.
SC Gowland aiming for 1 million by the end of next year. I might know what I'm doing by then. Well, I'm pretty sure I've written a few million myself, but I still haven't got a clue what I'm doing. But that is brilliant. And just to let you know as well, Delusions and Dragons is out now. He says, think Jumanji meets The Hobbit. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll cringe, you'll love it. So
I love fantastic. That. Jumanji beats The Hobbit. I want to read that. That sounds brilliant.
High concept. That's what we talked about in Extended.
Steve's talked about, what is he? 500,000 words now, 500,000 words, such a massive milestone. If you want to get that kind of word count down the road, it doesn't take years. This is the crazy thing about the 200 word challenge. It seems like it should, but it doesn't. Just pop along to 200wordchallenge.com and sign up today and watch the magic unfold.
And finally, last but by no means least, you were asking about Kiss Chase last week, and if children still do Kiss Chase in the playground. Right, so Jack Logan, who's at Jack Logan Author on Twitter, he says, I don't think Kiss Chase is a thing now. He says, my daughter 10 would rather eat a snail with a side order of sprouts than kiss a boy. So there we are.
Does that come on the list? It comes on the list after Brussels sprouts. That's impressive. I actually thought, thinking about that conversation we had last week about it, I think COVID pretty much got rid of just kissing generally, didn't it? And hugging and everything else. Oh, long may it come back, folks. Long may it come back. But anyway, brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Well, listen, folks, thank you for sharing, for writing in, for sharing all of your successes and your amazing stories. And thank you for being with us all the way through today's episode. We hope you feel inspired and motivated, and maybe reinvent yourself today. What's version 2.0 or maybe 7.0 of who you are? Who do you want to be in the world today and tomorrow? Because you get to choose. You get to choose because you get to write your own story, just like you write your own books. So do think about that, folks, this week. That's been a big theme in everything we've talked about. So just to inspire you further, we will be back again next week with an amazing author with tons more tips and advice to help you write, finish and publish your book. So, Mr. Stay, people want to contact us on social media. How would they do that?
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Bestseller Experiment, Twitter and Instagram is at BestsellerXP, or pop along to bestsellerexperiment.com. There's a contact tab there. You can email us there and drop us a line.
Brilliant. And if you're looking for a friendship group or mentors, join the Academy, academy.bestsellerexperiment.com. We are there waiting for you to become your coaches and mentors and get to know you and your story in a personal way that we absolutely love. So do join us there. And like I just mentioned again, the 200-word challenge, 200wordchallenge.com. Sign up today. Try it for 7 days. Can you write 200 words a day for 7 days? It's harder than you think, but you will have an amazing word count at the end of the week. And you might also just have a little bit of momentum to keep you going. Brilliant. Well, thanks, Mark, for a great episode this week. Look forward to chatting again next week. And to everyone out there in podcast land, it's a goodbye from Mark 1.
And a goodbye from Mark 2.
Goodbye.
Bye.